So UNLV's taking on Bryant football out of Rhode Island, and Chris Merritt is the head coach, and he gives us a couple minutes here. Boy, there's a lot going on around your program. You got a big game coming up, and it's an interesting year. You want to win this year, but you're also transitioning to another conference, the alignment this year, and then another one next year.
Yeah, we'll be 4 for 4 after all the dust settles. We'll be 4 for 4, and I can't think of a longer list of teams that we've had to play now over the last 4 years.
So how do you balance this year with kind of looking ahead? I'm guessing the kids right now don't care, but in terms of a build, does it matter what's going on in the future?
Well, I mean, that was a quick distraction before the season, but our goal and our focus is simple. We want to win the Big South OVC collaboration there. That's our goal. We're not looking to the CAA yet. That's another problem for another time.
As you guys move up, that means you need more funding, you need more support. It looks like your facilities are improving. So what kind of support do you get from the local area in terms of your football program?
Well, I think Smithfield is a very solid community. It's actually a suburb of Providence, Rhode Island. So Providence is a small city or a small big city, however you want to phrase it. And we typically get great attendance for the local games here. And this will be a really solid addition to renew some old rivalries in the past up here in the Northeast. In all reality, we're in the Big South, but there's nothing big or south about Bryant. So, we're looking forward to that, change. But right now, we're focused on that conference.
It's the voice of Chris Merritt, the head coach of Bryant football. Bryant's taking on UNLV 1:00 on Saturday at Allegiant Stadium. For a recruiting footprint, New England's pretty good high school football. I mean, how much do you recruit in New England? I know you have. You're rooted back in South Florida, which is really talent rich.
Yeah, I mean we're going to recruit our backyard always, but I also at the same time I really want to recruit areas where I know football is important. And obviously, my time in Florida, I was able to figure that out there. In New Jersey, we've got a strong Texas representation that's growing each year, and honestly, we've got a great group from California kids as well. So. We're an academic school. We're going to recruit nationwide where football is important.
How do you view the difference between FCS and FBS? You played at Indiana at the FBS level. So what is the main difference or differences?
Well, the first part is the numbers of scholarships that you get. We're still not there yet, but in FCS you're allowed 63 versus 85. At the FBS level. At the same time as the amount of money that schools put into it. There's a significant difference between a New England academic FCS program and a Big Ten BCS level program. So, we have to carve out our niche. Our administration is doing the things that we need to do to compete at the levels that we're playing in, which I'm always grateful for. They could walk me into a gunfight with a knife if they wanted to, but they seem like they're really excited about the move as well and willing to jump on the wagon to do what it takes to get it to be successful at those levels.
And you mentioned academics a couple of times, and also the size of the school. I mean, what's it like recruiting and telling kids about the experience as opposed to going to a school with 45 or 50,000 undergrads to a school that I think has less than 4,000 undergrads, right?
Right. You have to remember Bryant football is only 25 years old or 24 this year. So we really don't have the name recognition period, let alone the branding that some of these larger schools have. So Bryant is a well-known regional business school. About 10 years ago, we became a university. Actually, a little bit longer than that. It's been about 12, 13. I forget how long I've been here all of a sudden. So, but it became a university, and we were expanding the footprint for us a little bit. Recruiting has done that significantly for us, the Eastern Seaboard, as well as, like I said, we have 20 some odd kids on the team from Florida. So it is really growing in that regards. We are an academic school. We're a top 10, top 1% return on investment school in the country, and we're going to recruit those kids that academically fit.
Every time I talk to coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches, I kind of forget the trek that they make from player to coach and how many other coaches they work with, they meet over the years. I mean, you were a 17-year high school coach, so I'm sure you had a lot of the coaches, talking to you back then, right? So you know them from that level. Do you know personally any of the guys on the UNLV staff?
Personally, I don't think. Maybe is it? Forgive me, Dell Alexander. Is he on the staff?
Dell is on the staff as a wide receivers coach.
Yeah, he had come through. I think when I was in South Florida, at one of the programs that he had been. That's the name that I recognized. Didn't have a ton of West Coast guys come out there, but I know Coach Odom. I know his reputation well. Some of the programs that he's been at, being in Florida and being in the Southeast. So just by reputation only, other than Dell probably.
I also mentioned you were at Christopher Columbus in South Florida for 17 years. We had the interesting transition, about 7 years back now, of Tony Sanchez jumping from high school to college. Now you're way beyond that now. You've been a college coach for a while, but what was that initial jump like? How tough is it to make the transition?
Well, the time that I spent at Columbus was the only high school job I ever have. So, the X's and the O's were similar. My tail got planted in a chair a lot more than I wanted to. There's a lot of hats at this level, but working 18-hour days is working 18-hour days. It's really didn't really treat the job any different in high school. Had other things occupying my time other than football, more so. But right now I'm jealous. I go down the hallway and I see my coaches watching film in the off season, and they're perfecting their craft, and I've got Excel on my screen. So I get a little jealous in that regards, but yeah, it's been a transition. Hasn't been smooth. I've bucked my shins off a lot of pieces of furniture in the dark along the way, but as I'm starting to feel things out and get better, I think our program is getting better because of it.
Getting familiar with Bryant football, taking on UNLV in the season opener. Chris Merritt is with us, the head coach. You have some great players. You have some really good holdovers. And I know the guy that's been mentioned by UNLV coaches repeatedly is your quarterback, and Zevi Eckhaus, who is a pretty interesting story. Very highly touted quarterback, maybe a little undersized. Maybe that's why, he wasn't super recruited at the highest level. Smart kid. Talk about him on the field and the kind of leadership and his skill set.
Sure. We were lucky to get Zevi in recruiting. That was the COVID year. He a lot of schools between here and Los Angeles who missed the boat on this one. This is the first year that Zevi's come into camp, the undisputed starter. And his football IQ has gone through the roof for us. He's a coach on the field. It's always good. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've had a number of players. I still have a handful in the NFL right now, and I can tell you the guys who have the it factor. And Zevi has it. There's just the things that he's able to accomplish on the field, his overall grasp and knowledge of the game. I've just really seen and enjoyed watching him develop over the last 24 months. So, yeah, I would probably name him as somebody we would have to prepare for if you're playing Bryant.
No doubt. I'm always interested in the connect when you get a recruit. And you mentioned COVID year was a little bit different. How do you land a guy from Culver City, California? What was the connect on that one?
Just relentless. It's simply a deal where a lot of times during COVID, and especially after the COVID year that all these players have, I think really showing the difference in recruiting is really showing the young man that you want them, because it's much fewer kids are being recruited out of high school nowadays than they were 3 or 4 years ago. And so just making that known that we want you. I think that's one of the things that attracted Zevi to our program, if you ask him, but we work hard at it.
Well, he looks in front of him, and I think it's all familiar faces. Do you have the entire offensive line back?
Yeah, we've got 10 out of 11 starters returning on offense. Our expectations are high. Obviously this first game is going to be a big test for us. Coach Odom's a very well-known defensive coach, and his staff has done a great job on that side of the football. So we know we have our hands full there, but we have high expectations for us.
Over the years, have you at the FCS level faced a 3-3-5 and what that defense presents in terms of challenges?
Well, we've played we've played 3 different conferences over the last 3 years. So I've seen more teams and probably more defenses than I care to see. But ironically, FIU last year is an odd front. Akron, the first FBS opponent we played, is also an odd front. Just little twists, little different things. I think he's very the scheme we have is very good about taking away RPOs, which is what we do on offense quite a bit. and they don't give up the big play, or they try not to give up the big play. And so they're very well built to make you drive the field, and that's something that they do very well.
Back to the O-line, you guys have a massive O-line, height, weight. How do you balance when you recruit kind of the size? That's important, but also a skill level, because not every guy that you bring in who's 6'5", 280 is the same as another guy who's 6'5", 280. Sure.
I'll be honest with you. I think it's one of the misrepresented things about FCS football. There is we have to take chances sometimes on some project. We have to hope for development where kids that come out with the size that we need, because at the end of the day, we have got to recruit the guys who can physically block what we see each week. And what we're seeing each week at some of these teams that we're playing, especially where we're going, are the 6'4", 6'5" long defensive ends and defensive tackles. So we need to recruit accordingly. And so we really focus on our program, our strength and speed development program here with Coach Beach. Does a great job, and we try to do the best we can to develop those kids.
I think it's one of the toughest thing in college football coaching is judging the fight in the dog, because you can see a guy who's 6'2", maybe doesn't have the measurables, and he can whip a guy who's 6'6", and on the UNLV line, and I'm sure you scouted it. One of their best defensive linemen is Jalen Dixon, who was a walk-on out of Seattle, and he came in at like 6 foot, 250. He's put on 15 pounds, but his fight against big fellas is incredible.
Oh, 100%. We're well aware of him. I was a walk-on. Landon Ruggieri, our all-conference receiver, was a walk-on. That's something that very few people understand what's inside someone like that. So you're always going to find those guys who are maybe a little bit undersized, under-recruited. I think Zevi's one of those guys as well, that we get the opportunity, and this is a stage for them to show it off.
Tell me about two more of your captains, Dyson and Shillingford, who are on the defensive line.
Sure. I was really happy with the way the team voted. You sit back, and those kinds of things, when you talk about captains, it make you nervous as a coach sometimes, because what they see and what you see are not always the same thing. But it was great to see the kids that were named captain by their teammates, because I think they were spot on. Kenny Dyson is a long defensive end that I think has just gotten better. This is a great opportunity for him to come back. He got better after last year, and he was pretty strong for us last year. Physically, added a lot more strength in the weight room. Brings some long edge to you. That's something that again we need to see that in practice every day, because we're going to see it every Saturday. Darnell, another walk-on. Darnell's somebody who his brother played at this school. He came in. He played 3 or 4 different positions. We found him home at defensive tackle, and I'd say technically he's our best defensive tackle that's out there. You can't ask for 2 better leaders.
Last two, Coach, and we're talking to Chris Merritt, head coach Bryant, taking on UNLV. You guys played a lot of close games last year. 7 games, I think, came down to the final, towards the end of the game. You were on the wrong side more often than not. UNLV went through a run the last 3 years where I think in 1-score games they went 1-10.
Yeah.
What is that formula? And I know what the answer could be. Like, if I knew it, we'd get it done. But what is the formula to kind of turn the corner and winning close games?
Well, I appreciate you reminding me of that from last
Sorry
year.
about that.
I tried. No. Listen, we need to be reminded of it, because we cost ourselves in every one of those situations. These are the times where, unfortunately, last year, and it didn't seem like it at the time, we spent a lot of time in the offseason analyzing what we did and how we did it. And one of the things for us were penalties. That was something that we were in the wrong top third in FCS football of, and something that we placed a focus on, because of those games that you mentioned, 5 of them came down to the final play of the ball game, not the last 30 seconds. We're talking about the last play.
Wow. And
a penalty here, a turnover there, makes all the difference in the world in those games. There's all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and but that's the part about growth and learning. We have to simply put ourselves in the situations. The great thing that came out of it, we found ourselves in a lot of tight game situations, and hopefully this year, when it's there, we've been there and done that. We know what not to do now.
Looking at the opposition, what do you know about this UNLV roster? Who are the players that have impressed you on tape?
Well, we haven't gotten a ton. All we have are ideas of X's and O's, right? So Yeah, I can look at Arkansas, which was a really good defense last year, and I can look at what they did, and then I can try to line up and do what Alabama did. But I don't have Alabama, and I don't have Missouri. I don't have the rosters. I don't have Kansas. These are some of the films that we're able to look at. We have an idea on structure. I think in-game adjustments are going to be key, but to my knowledge, I know their D-line are a lot of turnover there, but we have some good guys coming back. I know their interior D-lines are larger than most of the D tackles that we're going to see. I know that their entire back half, their secondary, are also guys that are all returning. So there's going to be a lot of carryover for them. I wish I could give you specific names. I know jersey numbers, and I'm not even sure the same jersey numbers are going to be out there on Saturday. Offensively, I know that they've got a tailback and an athletic quarterback. I know the freshman tailback that came in is they have high expectations for him as well, and as well as the receiver spots. And when you're an FBS opponent playing against an FCS, the FCS coach is going to look at every position out there and see somebody that's probably physically better than what you have on your roster. So picking out specific people is going to be kind of tough. I do know that the transfer that they have from LSU on the edge is going to be a handful as well. So we've taken that into account.
Should be a hell of a matchup. Looking forward to it because the UNLV coaches have kind of said the same thing in terms of not having a whole lot on you guys, and that this is really going to be a big game of coaching adjustments in game. So it's going to be frenzied on the sideline. So we'll see you out there on Saturday. Looking forward to it, and thanks for so much time today.
Thanks, Steve. Take care.